That's interesting what you're talking about, making me think about how people they miss the signs sometimes. The universe is trying to deliver things, but they just keep missing them. And eventually the universe is like, okay, you're not listening. So I'm just going to let you keep doing your life until you want to tap back in here and ask for some help. But not that we need to get into the whole manifestation topic, but people think they know exactly what they need and exactly what they want for their lives. But I promise you, if you already knew exactly what you needed, like you wouldn't be where you are.
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Bites. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. My guest today, Andrea, is an intuitive mindset coach for business. Andrea helps her clients unlock a deeper awareness of their own intuition and a better understanding of how they truly operate. She believes that when people identify their blind spots and uncover what really drives them, they can harness their intuition as a powerful tool to fuel their business goals and create lasting success. Andrea, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good. How much do you rely on intuition in your sessions with clients?
100%.
Nice.
I guess there's my natural self that comes through, but then there's always that intuition piece because that's what's going to guide them more than just me. And that's what they're looking for, right? Because we can connect with just any person out in the world that could probably give us some really great advice. But my intuition allows me to see beyond what they're seeing and beyond what I can even see just as a personal being. So I tap into that intuitive piece that is in another dimension where I can see the things that they're really needing to see.
Okay, so I get what you're saying, but just to explain it to anyone who's listening who mightn't grasp all of that, how do you, so I'm going to play devil's advocate. How do you know, Andrea, it's your intuition and not just your mind talking to you?
Because it's stuff that comes from nowhere. Or out of nowhere, I should say. It's not anything that I was already thinking about. It's even a surprise to me. It's information that I never even knew until that moment. It's like, oh, wow, okay. It just comes out of left field. So that's when I know it's intuition. And that's what I tell people too, when they're trying to learn how to start tapping into their intuition and they're asking, how do I decipher between my intuition and just whether it's my own thinking mind? And I always say, well, when it comes out of nowhere and it's something you haven't really thought of before, or it hasn't been on your mind for weeks or months, and it's just out of nowhere, that's most likely your intuition.
Yeah, I love that answer because it just fits exactly how mine comes through. And so on that, intuition comes through many different ways. They have clairvoyance and claircognizance and those sort of things. Is there one of those ways that it happens for you a little more than others? Or?
I actually really love this question because I think so many people will often say, well, I don't see things or this or that. And I mean, that's a great question because everybody does get their information differently. Some people can see, some people can feel, hear, smell. I actually get all of it. And I mean, just to be very clear, I am technically psychic as well. And that's a lot of my intuitive stuff that comes through is psychic information. I would say I'm just saying it that way because I think most people understand it best to understand it's psychic because it's stuff that I didn't know, you didn't know maybe, and it's coming from another dimension. But when we talk about the way that we take it in, I do believe we have all the abilities and you just have to practice and hone them in. And what's been really interesting for me is I just really have learned to let go of expectations and never have any when I go into something to help somebody expecting to see something or hear something. It's just, I have no idea what's going to happen. I really don't. And so sometimes when I'm getting information, I can see it. Sometimes I see just words, or sometimes I see a person, and then somehow it's not like I hear it in the room because people also ask that question too. They're like, oh, if you hear it, you just like hear voices in the space that you're in, like there's other people there. And it's not like that. It's in your mind's eye, for me anyway. Yes, I have seen things in the present, but typically it's more in my mind's eye, and it's just this sense of knowing when I hear it. but I do kind of tap into all the senses, but I don't really know or try for one or the other. It's just however it needs and wants to be delivered.
Mm. And for myself, I've always found it interesting, and I don't hear about it very often, but our sense of smell can sometimes come on. And for me, as long as I can remember as a very young child, I've had the slightest sense of smell. Like I would guess I've got only 5% of my sense of smell works naturally for me. So I'm not aware of intuitively of that ever coming and hitting me. So I'm curious, sense of
Mhm.
smell for you, imagining it doesn't happen all the time, but is it just like the physical sense of smell and then it triggers something? Or is it, because, like we hear things intuitively, but it's not coming through our ears. The sense of smell, like, because
Yeah.
I rarely physically experience my sense of smell. It's very rare. So I'm curious for you how that comes through intuitively, or if it comes through at all.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, and I've never thought about it because that is the one sense that I feel like is not any different. So, yes, and I have a funny story. This one time, I was sitting at this really large conference, and all of a sudden, I could smell, like, smoke, and I'm asking the people around me, and that's the thing, when I smell stuff, I'm usually asking people, like, "Do you smell that?" And everybody's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay." And that's how I kind of figure it out that, okay, it's not has nothing to do with right here, and I remember texting my husband, I was like, "I'm smelling smoke." He's like, "Oh yeah, I just burnt something or whatever." Like he was at the house with the kids and he something had just like burned at the house. I was like, "Oh, okay." But I think it just has to do with where I'm tapped in and energetically I'm obviously very tapped into my children and my family. And so when stuff is going on in my household, then I smell it.
That's so interesting because my wife, she's got a very sensitive nose, but we've had times where we lived overseas at one stage where it was, very hot, very humid. So we would have the aircon on 24/7 and completely seal the house up. So we didn't want any like of that 95% 95-degree humidity coming into the house. And, like 2 o'clock in the morning, she'd wake up and I'd see her, she'd be looking out the window. And I go, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I can smell someone smoking a cigarette." And it's like, and where we were living, it was just like nobody's around there. Like, but yeah, so she would have these things go off with this sense of smell occasionally. And now you're saying that, I'm thinking she's very potentially intuitively getting something from somewhere else. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
After this, you're gonna go tell her, "You're not crazy."
Oh, she knows to her, she knows she's not crazy. She's like, it's real. I can smell it. And
It's weird, yeah, because it is
yeah.
very real. It smells just like it would smell, yeah.
Yeah, and sense of hearing. I'm wearing headphones right now because I wear hearing aids. For my age, my hearing is not good, but I do occasionally do hear voices in my head. No,
Mhm.
and like for example, my dad passed away about 3.5 years ago, and he was a man of few words anyway. So occasionally now I'll hear 3 or 4 words from dad. Just yeah, and it's usually around things that it's always around things that he would have shown me, taught me, or expect or rolled his eyes when I didn't do. It's like, "I told you that, son," or whatever. And I literally hear those words in my head. So they don't come through my ear canal, fortunately. So they're loud and clear. And yeah,
So, okay,
yeah.
I have a question for you. How
Mhm.
do you decipher that then? Because it sounds like that's something you heard very often growing up, right? We have those little sayings I think that we hear in our head still. Like my parents haven't passed, but I can sometimes hear like their responses to things just because that's how it was for so many years. So, how do you decipher, is this just the conditioning from my childhood or he's here now?
Guys, if you're on a path of developing your intuition, and I know you are, that's why you're listening here, then the Neurovisor is a tool worth checking out. It uses light and sound to guide your brain into deeper states of awareness, helping you quiet the noise, tap into your inner knowing, and strengthen your intuitive muscle. And who doesn't want that? There's no pills, no fluff, just 11 minutes a day to reset your mind and reconnect with your instincts. I've bought myself one last Christmas and I've added it to my daily practice, and the shifts are real. This is not a paid ad, but if you use the link in the show notes for more information, I do receive a small percentage of the purchase price. I highly recommend you check it out. It's only happened since he's passed.
Oh,
So yeah, really good question.
sorry,
I
hijacking your show.
no, absolutely. No, no, it's great. And this is the show's all about helping men to know, realize why they should develop their intuition and how to do it. So any discussion we have, you can ask me all the questions. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
So and I look, I don't study this stuff. I listen to so many podcasts, ebooks. I study the heck out of this sort of stuff, and I hear so many people give so many different opinions, but I would just say, I'm not sure. It's just happened since dad passed. And I'm
Mhm.
not a vivid dreamer. I don't remember my dreams hardly ever. But one night there was this, and if I do dream, if you said, do you dream in black and white more than color? I get probably more black and white.
Oh,
And
wow. I wonder if that's a male thing. I
I
don't know
don't
why.
know. I don't know. And anyway, one night, dad used to have this 63 Ford station wagon, a red one. And boom, all of a sudden I'm standing and outside the car, and it's like, wow. And dad's head appeared in the window of the driver's seat there, and
Mhm.
he stuck his head out the window a little, and he said something. It was very short and sweet, and I'm trying to remember what it was now. It was something weird. It was like there's a bun in the oven or something like that. And I was just like, it was the most random thing. And in the morning, I remembered it, and told my wife about it, and I said, this is really, really strange. Like, I wonder if one of our daughter-in-laws is pregnant or something. Because I don't know if do you use that term in the States,
Yes.
like derogatory term,
Yes.
bun in the oven? Yeah. For someone who's pregnant. And no one was. It was so weird, but it was this vivid, colorful 5 second
Hmm.
dream where dad was in it. And we didn't have like this close, amazing relationship when he was around. I can tell you, if you've listened to some of my podcasts, it was quite the opposite. But we had occasions where we got on real well. But he sort of took a back seat in all of the children's lives. He just let mum do it all, and but that was something that had occurred before I was born that caused all that. But anyway, so yeah.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I don't know whether that's just my father's voice in my head saying, clean that up, do that, make sure. But now it's usually encouraging. It's because I still have all these old tools in my workshop now. Like I inherited all those, and because my older brothers had too much stuff and they didn't want it, and so when I grab one of those, it's sort of like the voice comes. But yeah, is it intuition or is it just memory? Very good question. Yeah, I don't
I
know.
mean, I think we have that knowing though within us that it's different. It's just a little different than that usual voice in our head that's guiding us.
Yeah, yeah. And my relationship with my dad has changed radically since he passed, because one of the reasons I'm all about developing intuition is, 35 plus years ago, I heard the term most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And instantly I thought of my father, and I thought that explains what's going on with him. He's quietly desperate inside. And he lived till he was 92, and he
Mhm.
retired work at 70. And from 70 to 92, he was trying to drink himself with alcohol to death. Like he wanted to check out, and just his body was too strong and he couldn't. And so after he passed, I did. Have you ever heard of a lady called Anita Morjani?
No.
She had a quite a profound near-death experience, and she wrote a book. Dr. Wayne Dwyer, I think, helped her get it published and all this sort of stuff. And she has a 50-minute guided meditation. And the first time I did that was about 6 weeks after Dad passed, and it's full on. Like she takes you to the other side and back. like because
Oh,
of her near-death experience. Yeah, and it's fun. I love that sort of stuff. And during that thing, like all this stuff with my dad came to me on why he was how he was, and it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and I won't go right into it, but it was
he feels very quiet and strong. I'm getting like I feel so much pressure in my head, and I feel like he's trying to step through. And I'm like, stop it. Interruption. Like there's so much pressure in my head for some reason. But anyway.
because you are a medium too. You speak to
Yes.
dead people,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
All
Yeah.
right. And you think my dad's there trying to like tell him
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. You said something and then he said something and I'm like, not now. But yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm happy with you pushing him out of the way, or I'm happy with you letting it through, whatever you feel want to do. Like I'm totally easy on that stuff. Um, yeah. So let me get back to my questions here.
Okay.
Back on track. So talking about NDEs, years ago,
Mhm.
from what I've heard, you had a 26-second experience where you flatlined. Can you share with us how that affected your life or your worldview, or like, tell us about it or wherever?
Yeah, this wasn't something that happened just once, actually. So what was happening was I was passing out and flatlining, but it wasn't until I had to do it at the hospital. They hooked me up to monitors and induced this, and it was through a tilt table test. And then when they induced it, they saw that I completely flatlined. And so I had no heartbeat at all, no electrical signal, nothing. And so luckily they said it was kind of, I think, by the grace of God, I just came back on my own because they said they didn't even think the drugs were going to help restart my heart when it stops in that way. And so I came back. And then as soon as I came back, they said I had to get a pacemaker. And otherwise, I wouldn't get my driver's license back because this was a problem that had been going on prior. I was just flatlining. And I knew the episodes were getting worse and worse because when I would wake up from an episode, I wouldn't have any vision at all. If you don't have the oxygen, going to your brain, then you lose your vision. And so that's what was happening. And it was just getting worse every time. So the less vision I had, then I knew it was a longer episode. And so I ended up with a pacemaker. And that in itself was definitely an eye opener, the flatlining. But then it went on to just a few months later, I think it was 3 months later, I started having chest pain, like really bad. And yes, I'm a fighter, so this is just naturally me. The wire was through my heart and into my lung, but nobody knew it. And they just kept telling me it might be the nerves from the surgery. And so I just kept pushing. I just kept pushing through life for 3 weeks. And finally, I got to a point where I just knew. I knew I was going to die. You
So just
just
sorry to interrupt. You're saying about the wire from your heart was in your lungs,
from the pacemaker. I had the surgery and I
and it
got the
was
pacemaker.
supposed to be like that?
No, it
Were they
came loose.
drunk the day they did it?
So that's the great okay, so that's the thing. I mean, this is such a long story. I never know how much to get into it, but the day of the surgery, I felt like something was off. And the surgeon came in and he was late. And I just said, if today's not the day, I can come back. Like, it's okay. We don't have to do it today, which is probably like a crazy thing for a patient to say to a doctor. They're just like, okay, girl, be quiet and lay there. I'm going to
I've
drug you
got
up.
BMW payments. We're doing it today.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, so we did do it that day. And then 3 months later, I was in excruciating pain. And the day I went back to the hospital, I remember there was some sort of equipment they didn't have access to that day. So they couldn't fully look into things. But they said, sometimes this happens where you just start getting nerve pain from the device and it kind of shoots around. And sometimes we have to cut you back open and move the actual device. And so I thought, okay, like maybe that's what it is. So I kept going. I had a boyfriend at the time. He was moving across the country. And so I made it from California to Oklahoma. And then I got that far and just knew it would be too much of a struggle if I went any further to get back home. So I got back home and I just kept waiting it out until I felt maxed out because nobody knew what was wrong. And so then one night in the middle of the night, I woke up my mom. I was like, it's time. We have to go. I just knew. I can't explain it. I've obviously died, but I've also had close calls several times. And I just know when my body isn't going to keep going on its own. Like somebody has to intervene. And so we went to the hospital and they found that my lungs were full of blood, but they didn't know why at that point. And so then I had to keep going under all these different tests. And eventually they figured out that the wire was zapping me in my lung. Yeah. So then I had surgery again. And for that surgery, they told me I may not wake up like ever. Um, so that was definitely also another one of those moments where you really reflect on life and how precious it is. But the near death experiences or death experiences, they really put things into perspective where I often will just kind of disassociate from my life and look down on it and evaluate it. And I encourage people to do the same. I feel like it's really helpful for me to pull myself out of my life, look down on it and imagine it as this movie. And am I happy with how it's gone so far? And if I don't like what I'm seeing, what can I do to make it different? Because so many people just keep going and going with what they're already doing and they complain about it, they're not happy, but we just get this one shot at it. Really, we get this one shot and I almost lost it. And I really think that whatever you want to believe in, but for me, it's God. And I think that I was shown this opportunity to make more of my life than to just keep surviving, because I was just surviving. I suffered with a lot of health problems, suffered with severe depression in my younger years, to the point that I wished I wasn't here and I'd rather have been somewhere else. And, I thought, well, if there's this pain-free place called heaven, like take me there now. And I would just pray for that. And it didn't happen. And I think it's because I'm meant to be here to help people have more hope and happiness in their lives and feel fulfilled during this time that they do have here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know when I start to get a bit like despondent with how things are going or whatever, I have a bit of a unusual view of life, which helps me see it in a better way. Perspective. I look at it like it's a computer game. Have you ever played like those kids racing car games, Mario Kart or anything? So you
Yeah.
get in those games, you get to select whether you're going to have wet weather tires or mud tires or whatever, and
Mhm.
you get to select what sort of vehicle you're in, your physical body, but in the game it's a car, and what's its strengths, what's its weaknesses. And you're going around and the guy in front of you goes through the mud puddle and splashes mud on your windscreen, but from experience you've got windscreen wipers and a water washer, so like it's, but you also work out next lap around, when we get to that similar spot, you're going to slow down or speed up or pull to the left or to the right, so that when that guy splashes the mud, it misses you completely, and then
Mhm.
that person stops doing it because they realize that's not effective. And it's just that plus a million other things that now happen in our lives. And as I just, for me, if I sit back and look at life like that, it's like when someone pisses me off in traffic or whatever, it's like, okay, that was just the little thing that was supposed to happen today to see how big of a person I am, how far I've developed, because that sort of little thing shouldn't actually bother me at all. I should just smile and wave or
Mhm.
not even notice it. Like it helps me put everything in proportion a bit more. And then when I think
Mhm.
about intuition, it's like, well, okay, that's my headset talking back to the pits. And they're going, Doug, you're getting low on fuel. You've got 2 more laps and you're going to have to come in and we'll change your tires as well. And it's like, that's me going to a weekend meditation retreat or something, like in I go, fuel up, change the tires, or check the air pressure on the tires, clean the windscreen, and I'm ready to go again. And it's, and I don't expect anyone to believe that's how life really is, but for me, it's just, yeah, it keeps me in my little bubble, as my wife says, and I'm just there and I'm happy, and it's
Yeah.
how I look at it. So when I see stuff happen to other people, I'm like, I don't go telling them this except through the podcasts. I've got, I can't hear the people at the other end going, "You're a nut," but it's just how it makes me feel better about and helps me handle the
Mhm.
things better. So yeah.
Well, I think that self-reflection piece is really, really important. And I really do believe everything happens for a reason. And I think when you can believe that everything happens for a reason, you can live in a much happier place because you can understand that it's happening for you, not to you. So, okay, this person cut me off. Like, why did that happen? Like, maybe I wasn't meant to be that extra car length ahead, right? I mean, there's always something. And also this piece of, you probably talk about this, I'm sure, on your show, but your perception of things is going to create your reality, right? And what reality do you want to live in? And what world, how do you want it to be? So your perception is completely controllable as well. And a lot of people don't think that. They think, well, anybody would be mad. And it's like, not really. Not everybody gets mad. Some people just let it roll off and move on. Because I also tell people when they're upset about something, I'm like, well, how's this going to serve you? You know, if you stay upset about this, like, what is this going to do for you in the long run? Like, does this do anything? And if it doesn't, then it's probably wise to just let it go.
Yeah. So you, in your bio there, you've got like that you work with people in business. Is there a particular reason, or is that just a niche that you felt drawn to help people in business?
No, I mean, and I work with everybody. It just depends. I mean, there's some people that just want to start leaning into intuition, or there's people that just want to have like conversations about intuition and about perspective on life and how they can gain another perspective and a different way of living. And business is something, it's a unique thing that I just offer it because it's so unique. Not everybody can offer the intuitive piece that I offer. Like I had shared with you, um, one person came to me, they were possibly going to do a deal where they were going to sell their company. And he asked me what I saw with this. And I told him, well, I immediately see this person shaking your hand, turning around and laughing. And obviously, like, that piece doesn't matter to them necessarily. It's all about like, how do you interpret this? And so for me, what matters here is the interpretation that I get intuitively from this is that this person is basically saying, I pulled one over on you. And so then we had this long conversation about things that were just kind of coming to me. You need to look into this and you need to look into that and certain things. And so he did start doing a deeper dive into this person that he was possibly going to do business with and chose not to. And I also told him what I intuitively, psychically saw happening if you didn't do the deal. And I told him if he didn't do the deal, he would end up gaining more money in the long run and he would grow the company more on his own than he would with this person coming in as a partner for a period of time. And that was actually a while back. So it already has all come to fruition. He didn't close with the guy. He's now going to close with somebody else. It's worth more money now than it was. But this is something that no other business, I shouldn't say no other, there's few business coaches can actually offer you. They can offer you the perspective and different angles to look at, but I tap into that psychic piece. So
Mm.
it's something, people work really hard to have a business. And I think it's a valuable tool that I offer. So why not? I want to see people succeed to the highest level. And I think to succeed to the highest level, this helps so much.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, what percentage of your clients would be male? Is it small or
Would be what?
significant? How many of them are men?
Oh, men. Um, so I've transitioned out of it, but I would say it was probably like half and half, to be honest. But I'm not doing as much. Like I'm open to doing that, but now I'm doing more of the podcasting, like you as well. I have a
Mhm.
podcast show and a YouTube channel. So that's kind of been my focus to reach more of the masses.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And that's, yeah. And I do coaching too, but it's not something I'm running after every day. And I love it and I enjoy it. And I remember in the beginning and particularly I studied to be an intuitive coach.
Mhm.
I was always very nervous of my abilities, but then when you do it and it just flows, it's just so, yeah,
Mhm.
I love the intuitive side of it. It reminds me of a couple of weeks ago. 2 days a week, I still work doing fire safety training because I used to be a professional firefighter. And probably 3 or 4 times a year, I get sent to do a different type of training that's not firefighting, but it's still for a specific type of emergency. And I feel feel less confident doing that. Because you can take any firefighting, fire safety question on the planet, and I'll jump in on it. Like I'm right up there. But this other area, it's like, yeah, I sort of know it. And anyways, the first couple of times I was a bit apprehensive doing it, but it went well. A week or two ago, I had to do another one, and I went into it with a lot more confidence, not only because of intuition. I just like, well, whatever's going to happen here is going to happen. Like, and I brought out ridiculous examples that shocked me that I was stoked with. I had to stop the grin on my face. And I'm like, and just like you said at the beginning of the show, where did this come from? Like, I know where it came from. It didn't come from me. I've never thought of this before. I've never heard this before. And like one of the guys came, and the people I'm teaching have got a lot more training in this area than I have. But my boss has just taken on this type of training as well as an add on. And one of them came up to me afterwards. He goes, Doug, that was so good. I got so much out of that. And I'm like, you've probably been around, you've learned a lot more about this subject than I have. But it was just the intuitive part came through because I could see the eyes lighten up. They're like, oh, we get it. We get it. That makes so much. And I'm thinking that just helped me a lot too. Like I understand that a lot better now because this benevolent, invisible force I allowed to flow through me. And yeah.
No, it's it's helpful and it's powerful. I was thinking about another client too right now that he gets antsy sometimes, when he's trying to close a big deal and he'll be like, I need to know, Andrea, what's happening? What's happening? And so then I've told him before what I see on the other side. I said, well, there seems to be some confusion on their part. And I explained what I see. And I said, it would be helpful if you just let them know certain things. So there's things like that. I think that can be helpful just to help people stay calm and at peace with, when you're dealing with a lot of money and big deals, it's helpful. Sometimes people just need to have some peace of mind.
Yeah. And see, for you, like having, being a medium and a psychic and that sort of thing, I don't delve in that part of the world. I love it and I love hearing it and I 150% believe in it. But for me, it's not kind of how I flow. I'll just give analogies to things. And,
Mhm.
like my son's, one of them's in the finance industry and he's highfalutin in certain areas and stuff like that. And occasionally we'll talk on the phone and he'll tell me something that's going on, at work or whatever. And I'll go, and I'll just give an analogy back. I said, that's like such and such and such and such. Blah, blah. And he'll go, hang on, why did I write that down? Well, I've got to tell my boss that. I've got to tell my boss that because that's just makes so much sense. Just puts things in perspective. And he goes, where did you hear that from? Where'd you, like expecting me to say like, oh, on this podcast or in that book, I read it. And I'm like, mate, it just came out because I've I find I've got to dumb a lot of things down for myself. So I'm looking for analogies all the time to help me understand things. So I'm just happy to draw anything from the ether to help
Yeah.
me understand it. And then other people get the advantage of it at the same time as well, I guess. So, yeah.
I'm sure you talk about this a lot too, but what I'm thinking about right now while you're saying this for people that are listening, unless you've talked about this a million times, but people often ask the question I very commonly get is, well, how do I start hearing this? You're saying you don't know, you get these things, but people are like, well, how do I do that? How do I start hearing these things or getting these little pings? And it's really quite simple. It just starts with quieting the mind. You have to give it the space. Like we have so much chatter in our brains going on. Do the dishes, do your laundry. Oh, make sure you're here by this time. And don't forget that's tomorrow. And like we have all these thoughts going on in our heads, and that doesn't give the other side space to come through, right? And so it's really important that you just give it the space and then it will start creeping in. But I also say ask, put that question out there and that will and that desire, because that is how it works. The other side isn't just going to be super intrusive just because they want to be. They need to know that you want the guidance and you want the help. And once you start doing that, setting your ego aside, that it's okay, I'm ready to let somebody else besides myself guide me here, step through, guide me. give me the signs. You ask for these things and they will come.
Yeah. And I find too, to get, like you're just saying, like the other side wants to give us messages, but they have to know that we're willing to get them. And then it's
And
getting
notice
through.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I look at things like the frequency that they're sending that message through, like an old car radio, where when you were turning the dial, because I'm quite a bit older than you, and my first car had a really
I
an old,
remember.
it only had an AM radio because I was probably about 20 before we got FM radio here. And so I had to get a new radio to get the new frequencies. But when I would turn the dial between stations, I got static. And then I would have
Mhm.
to tune in. So, and I had to learn, I had to learn when I was two, I didn't know how to tune that radio, but through the years, one thing that helped me a lot by accident, 14 years ago, I was just through circumstances, I was absolutely had enough of the food we were eating because where we was able sourcing it from, we were living overseas in an odd spot and it was challenging to get decent, healthy food. And anyway, across my lap drops this book on changing. It's not a diet, but a lifestyle change of what you're eating, not just for a month or three, but forever. So anyway, I changed what I was eating radically. I dropped
Mhm.
25 pounds in 2.5 months, and I didn't think I was overweight. I thought I might lose a couple of pounds. It just the weight fell off me. I was shocked. And 2, 3, 4 months later, my worldview started to change. I started thinking differently as the
Mhm.
months went on because I believe the frequency of the food that was going in my mouth was very different.
Mhm.
I basically cut out as much as possible of processed food and was preparing food that was from a raw state into a cooked state myself, or my wife, like we weren't allowing it to have been done 3 months ago and put into a packet or into a can or whatever. So I believe that change of the frequency of food that came in changed my frequency. So I was now on, not like, full on connected, but I was more connected to other frequencies, other realms to be able to hear from them. That's just how I look at it. And again, some people would think that's a bit weird. What are you talking about? But for me, that's what started to happen and started me on this different journey.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I would say you're not wrong, but also there's that piece of how sluggish the system is just in every way when it's got this toxic overload. Your body's just trying to keep you alive, right? And so it's just fighting all the junk. So once that's out of the way, then you can start tuning in better. So that makes sense. But I've had a similar journey too, because I had ulcerative colitis and still, and it went away and then it came back. But when I was doing one of my podcast episodes, it's so funny. My show, sometimes I'm like, is this just for me? Because every episode I really gained something that I was just like needing. But I get that message from people quite often, actually. Like, just listen to such and such episode. It was exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm like, yay. I mean, that's the whole goal, right? For people to listen and just hear what they needed to hear. And I just trust that people will listen to what they need to listen to and they'll take away the information in the way that they need to take it away. But I actually had just had a colonoscopy and things were not good. And then I'm sitting there editing my episode for the next week, and it was on the Dr. Gundry diet. Are you familiar with that one?
No.
Yeah, it's a no lectin diet, which is fascinating. It was really interesting. He was
Oh,
talking
is
the
that
guy.
Stephen Gundry?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. I have listened to one of his books. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard of lectins, but didn't really hadn't heard that they were a problem. But it was really interesting in this episode, the guy I had on was saying how he remembered watching this little, I think it was like a chipmunk or something outside, but it grabbed a tomato and it peeled the tomato and then it pulled the seeds out. And he said, he just saw that this little animal intuitively knew not to eat the skin because that's where there's a higher lectin count. And lectins are bad. They basically permeate the intestinal wall and then open you up for the leaky gut. And so I thought that was really interesting. But now, so I did the diet and I'm still on it, but I'm cheating here and there a little bit. Um, but now when I eat, I kind of tune into my food before I eat it, like fully imagining myself eating it, imagining it in my stomach and in my intestines, like how do I feel? And I can kind of just feel fine, or I feel my stomach kind of start to cramp up, and then I know like, okay, that's something my body does not want to eat. So I'm trying to be more of an intuitive eater as well now. But yeah, the Gundry diet, it's also amazing. But same thing with that diet. And then there's another one where I did it and it was, I think, just like gluten-free, dairy-free, same thing, nothing processed, everything homemade. And I remember losing like 5 pounds, and I was like, wow, like that was a lot of cheese that just fell off of me. Like I just blamed it on the dairy. Um, but yeah, once the inflammation and all that goes away, it's wild. You don't realize that you were carrying some extra pounds. And I even told my husband, I was like, I'm getting thinner. I don't know how I feel about this, but I'm eating. I'm eating as much as I want, but I'm just eating so clean that the body's processing it and keeping what it needs to keep, and the rest is bye-bye. So, yeah, I can totally relate to your story.
Yeah, and I relate to what he talks about, where he had a client who had all sorts of issues, and he got her off bread and because
Mhm.
gluten is a lectin, and got her off that. And then she was real happy. Everything worked, and in a couple of months she was very healthy. A year or two later, she went back to Europe to visit her mum, and her mom's, like, here, have this, and she's looking at the bread going, oh, I can't eat bread. And her mother's laughing at her, you're like, you're an idiot, like, da, 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 da. So anyway, she gave in to the pressure from her mum, and she starts eating the bread over in Europe. And she's there for 2 months and nothing happens and everything's fine. And she's like, oh, I can eat bread again. And then she comes back to LA and she just starts eating bread. And then like a month later, she's back at Dr. Gundry's surgery
Yeah.
again. "Oh, what happened?" And so he says, well, tell
Mhm.
me what's going on. And then he goes, of course, because in Europe, they haven't stuffed up their flour and their wheat. And it's a different thing they're eating over there to the genetically modified stuff that you guys have in North America. And I know we've been to Europe multiple times, and I don't I I'm not a big bread eater here in Australia, but when I go to Europe, like, I love it. Like, it's just is something different about their bread over there. It's just like the gelati when we go to Italy. It's like, it's just really different too. And I tell myself it's different anyway, and get into it.
It's fascinating, the whole gluten-free thing, because I know several people from the States here that have gone to Italy with celiacs, and they say they can eat anything there and it doesn't bother them. And I know it's the pesticides and different reasons, right? But then we actually are getting an au pair from Italy in like a month. And it's fascinating to me because she's actually celiac and she can't eat the pasta, I guess, in Italy. I'll have to confirm this with her, but she has celiacs. I'm like, how do people? I thought people in Italy didn't have celiacs. I don't get it. So it's really interesting. So I'm really curious to see how she does here. I told her, I was like, I'm a little worried about you here because if you can't tolerate the food there, it's real bad here. But we'll see. Stay
Yeah.
tuned.
Interesting. Yeah. And I love the example you gave where you said, like, look at the food and see how it feels. And I remember I've shared this on here once or twice before, but a few years ago, it was our wedding anniversary. And I said to my wife in the morning, I said, like, I'm really sorry, but I got to work today and I won't be home till about 9. And so we won't be able to go out, but we'll go out maybe tomorrow night or the next night. But about 3 in the afternoon, I looked at my work schedule, and all of a sudden, my last job of the day had been deleted off the thing. So I quickly rang my wife, and I said, "Hey, we can go out to dinner. Like, I'll be home about 5 or a little after. I'll race in and have a shower. You work out where we're going to go, and you know, as soon as I'm out of the shower, we'll jump in the car and we'll go there. You ring up, you make a booking." So I get home and I say, and she goes, "Oh, okay. I've decided on 2 places. We can go to this pizza and pasta place we've been before, and we've been there 2 or 3 times, or we can go to this other Thai restaurant. And you know, which one do you want to go to?" And I'm like, I've expected to walk in the door and her say, "I've booked us a table at this restaurant." But I didn't hear that. And now she's put pressure on, which one do you want to go to? And I haven't even had a shower yet. And I'm like, and I wanted to say, I don't know. But instantly a voice came in my head, Andrea, and said, "Don't say you don't know because you do."
Yeah.
And I went, okay. And my wife knows I can be a little bit slow to answer sometimes because I'm processing. She's finally working that out. So she's sitting there looking at me. Which one do you want to go to? So I go, okay, how am I going to feel if we go to the pizza and pasta restaurant we've been to before and enjoyed? And just a couple of seconds, I get a feel, and it's a nothing feel. Like nothing really amazing comes out. And then I
Mhm.
think, okay, how will I feel if we go to this Thai restaurant we've never been to before? That's but has a good name and a good reputation. Will How will I feel after that? And I just sat there for 2 or 3 seconds with that, and I felt a little better inside. Like in my gut, I just felt slightly better. And I said, let's
Mhm.
go to Thai. And she's, boom. And so I quickly shout, bang, if we go, we get down there and it's Thursday night, so we don't make a booking and we get there at 5:30. So it's like, we're just going to get a table. We walk in, we go to the lady and we say, oh, just table for two. And she's like, oh, do you have a reservation? And we're like, no. She's like, oh, okay, hang on. And she's like looking around and flicking through the book. And she goes, we've just got this one last table. She goes, but you'll have to be gone by 7. And we're like, that's fine. We're not stayers on a Thursday night. And that's fine. So she sort of popped us on this one little last sort of bench high up with, bar stool sort of thing on this long, narrow table. And it was great. We had a nice little view out the window, and our son walks in the door because he often gets takeout from there. And he was like, and so he sort of wished us happy anniversary and all that and da 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 da. And look, and then we've been to Thailand half a dozen times, and we're not big drinkers, but whenever we go there, there's a particular brand of Thai beer that we like to have one beer with our dinner. And so they had that beer. So we got one of those each, and we just had a really good time. And the next day, I told her, my wife, that story. And
Mhm.
she goes, I really wanted to go to the Thai restaurant, but she goes, because it was our anniversary, I didn't want to make that final decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just like, how did I feel inside? And I don't do that a lot all the time. It's, like, and I need to do it more. But on that evening, it worked really well because we had a great evening. And if we'd have gone to the other place, it probably would have been okay, but it probably wouldn't have been as good as
Mhm.
what we'd experienced. So yeah, it's
I I get that, and I'm the same. I need to do it more, but it's asking those questions where we can start getting the intuitive information that we really need so that we can be in alignment with our soul's path. So I completely agree. We need to do it more often, but it's hard. We're living life with other people in it too, right? So we're listening to their things and we're taking it in with our own personal beliefs as well. So you got to find that mix. But when you were talking about your wife and just bringing her into the story, it made me wonder if, do you ever talk about on this podcast men and them wanting to explore and start tapping into their intuition and their fear of judgment from a significant other? Just because I do think that is a piece. Men think it can be so girly to be into intuition.
yeah. Well, I kept it from my wife for a really long time. I mean, how the intuition came on for me is we were in in Thailand on 2 weeks holiday, sitting by the pool, and I downloaded a book a year or so before about clearing energy, and next thing, what was it? A book about something anyway, and the author sends out an email while I'm sitting by the pool and I'm looking on my iPad, and I get this email from the previous author of this other book, and she's advertising this energy clearing course and that sort of thing in California in 2 weeks, in 2 months' time. So I go in and I study all about it and I read up, and I'm thinking, I want to go. So I tell my wife, 2 months' time, I want to go to California and I want to do this 5-day energy clearing class. And she's like, you're a nut. Like this was because I hadn't really got into intuition at that stage. So I go there and do that thing. And the instructor warned us that our lives would change, and they really did. And your intuition would come on. And then I went and did 6 months later, I went back and did another 5-day course. And then 6 months later, I went back and did another 5-day one with them, like all different levels and stuff. And yeah, so
Who
the
was the
intuition, sorry.
Who was the instructor?
A lady called Jean Hayner. She's in California somewhere. I'm not even sure exactly where, but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I used to be
Uh,
in California. Okay.
right. She's got a book out called Clear Heart, Clear Home, and she also does Chinese face reading and things like that. Yeah, very, very interesting. But anyway, it brought my intuitive sensitivity on, but I didn't have the language to interpret it. So that was another whole other story. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I would start to talk to my wife about these sort of things, but I really didn't know how to explain it properly. And then she'd just come back with like a question that was very, very valid. And it was just sort of like, I'm not sure how to answer that. Like, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not that, I'm still learning sort of thing. But she was always the intuitive one in the family because when our boys, we've got four adult sons, when they were little, when they were 3 or 4, she would look at them and she'd say, "Don't you ever lie to mummy because I know exactly what you're thinking." And if, the oldest one turns 40 in a couple of months, and if you said to him now about that, he'd go, "Oh, yeah, mum knew exactly what we were thinking." But from what I've heard there, that is intuition, but it's different because I've heard that apparently when women are pregnant, their brain, part of their brain rewires in sync with the fetus so that
Mm.
they can, like the baby doesn't change its wiring, mum changes her wiring to line up so that while she's pregnant and when the baby's, months or a year or so old, she's intuitively knowing what the child needs to keep them alive because that's what things are. So she was always very intuitive that way. And she's had time where she would, a couple of times she'd wake in the middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning, and she'd just say, "We have to pray right now for my brother. I don't know what's going on, but he's something crazy." And sure enough, we'd go round to her parents' house the next day, or the same day, like 3 or 4 in the morning. And he was still living at home, but he'd been, late teens sort of thing, and he'd been out on the town. And so we'd wander around there and sort of see him and go, "How you going, mate? What's up?" And it's nothing. Just he'd be extra, extra, extra quiet, just sort of sit there, drink a coffee, and just not say. And if you try to get anything, and he was that sort of guy. When things weren't right, he'd clam right up. So we knew. And yeah, so she was always very intuitive, but so we always left that side of it to her. But yeah, it took her quite a few years to start to get the idea that I'm into it. She's pretty much on board now, like, okay. And she actually puts it on me sometimes about things. And the funny thing is with women, a couple of weeks ago, for the first time ever, I went and visited a naturopath, and it's a lady. And we're talking about a few things, and something came up anyway. And I mentioned about the podcast. She said, "Oh, what's the podcast about?" And I told her. And then a minute or two later, she says to me, like I'm thinking, "Smarty, I'm here paying you." But she says to me, "So you've got this podcast, Doug, that teaches men about intuition. What do you intuitively think it is that you need, that you're asking me for?" And I'm like,
Oh, yeah, I
and I
get that too
and I
sometimes.
told her, and I'm thinking, I'm paying you.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it was a perfect question at the perfect time. She was very intuitive, putting it very politely, and she
yeah.
wasn't being sarcastic. It was very genuine, putting it back to me.
I
Because
get stressed though sometimes with my own stuff, like, health things that I sometimes I struggle to tune into my intuition for myself. It's a lot easier to do it for somebody else for whatever reason, which I mean, I know what reason. I need to quiet my mind more and give it the space and let that stress take a back seat, but I'm not
yeah,
always the best at that.
yeah, and I think because we've got so much time, like we just don't focus, hyper focus. Like you said at the beginning, we was talking about my dad, and you're like, my dad's there, like, oh, trying to come into you because he knows that you and I aren't going to be talking for the next 6 months. Like this is like a 1 hour deal. Like, hey, I want to get a message to Doug right now or whatever. Like, it's short, so it's focused. Whereas, like you
Mhm.
say, we're just, yeah, going along with the day and oh, la-di-da, and we've got our whole life to come up with this sort of stuff. We've got to hyper focus a little bit more. And a specific thing to, yeah, have it pop through. But yeah, most of the men, come on, what you were saying, like how do our wives view this sort of thing? It's interesting. I've had one gentleman come on who lives not far away, and he's very, very intuitive, and he's a public speaker. He's a six-time Australian champion, four-time world champion, surf life-saving Ironman. And he's in his mid-50s, public speaker, heavily like in teaching people about intuition and improving their lives and stuff. So I've had him on, actually, I've had him in this room where I am right now, interviewing him. And his wife's got her own podcast called Girl Awakening. And I've had her come, and I told her why I wanted to come and talk to her, because I said the theme is going to be, what is it like for a woman to live with a very intuitive man? And then I've had both of them here together for another podcast, because Joe admits that Trevor is far more intuitive than she is. So it's a different mix to normal.
Yeah.
So I was sort of, like ran that one by, was how are you handling this? Like where the wife's trying to catch up, and like her podcast is actually one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, because she only interviews women, and they're all,
Mm.
you know, super intuitive and all that sort of stuff. So it's great hearing all those sort of stories. And actually, the funny thing is, this is how we got onto the naturopath, is because the naturopath was on her show, and because she usually interviews live in person, because where
Mm.
we live, there's thousands of intuitive women who have all sorts of modalities and stuff. But man,
Mhm.
like we struggle. I'm doing everything on Zoom, interviewing intuitive men, because there's a lot fewer around, or there's a lot fewer putting their hand up, letting people know that that's the way they run. So yeah.
I don't think I'd want my husband to be as intuitive as I am, honestly. I mean, he will tell you, like, sometimes I I try not to, I really do, but sometimes if he's not talking enough, like, I just read his mind, and so sometimes he's like, "Can you stop reading my mind right now?" Like, he just, like, knows, and I'm like, "I'm sorry."
But therefore,
Um,
he's reading your mind because he knows you're doing it.
well, it's usually because I say a little something, and then, like, if I ask him something, he knows, like, the reason I'm asking is the question is because yeah, I'm reading his mind, so I know
Yeah,
too
well,
much.
for me, that's just like you've got a car radio and you can tune into his station. He's got
Yeah,
one too, but he either doesn't know how to turn it on, couldn't be bothered, or it doesn't interest him to go and
yeah,
turn it on and tune into Andrea's frequency right now. And,
yeah.
yeah. And men do that for various reasons. I guess part of the reason for the show is to show men there's a lot of good reasons to tap into your intuition, because,
Mhm,
just imagine if every man on the planet was able to make one better decision a day
mm,
because they were tapping into their intuition, just whether
mhm,
it's in business, in family, in their own personal health, how they treat their next door neighbor, a discussion with a friend, or whatever. Like say
mhm,
they were in a discussion with a close friend and they were about to say something hurtful, not deliberately, but by accident, that could stress the friendship that's gone on for the last 20 years. They could intuitively just get a hit, don't say that. And
mhm.
I've had that, like, because I used to say really stupid things all the time. I still say them now, but not as often. And two reasons I don't say as many stupid things now as I used to. One, bruised ankles from my wife being in the room, kicking me under the table, like literally. And so now it's like when she's not in the room, it's like I get this voice in my head, don't say that. And then I'm like, yeah, you're right. If I'd have said that, that could have really stressed this friendship or relationship or whatever. So it just helps me be a nicer, better person. And if I'm a nicer, better person, people who are nicer, better people are more inclined to want to talk to me or hang around me. and that makes me feel better about myself and enjoy my life better. And then when I come
Mhm.
home, I'm nicer to my wife, to my kids. I pat the dog nicer, and it's just life's just better in general. You don't have to be super duper psychic or make everything, but you can make the world such a better place by just being friendlier and nicer. And I find my intuition helps me do that, and that's at a
Mhm.
minor level, let alone taking it into business, into your
Mhm.
workplace, into when it's just a discussion over the fence with a neighbor.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. I still have that where I live because I'm on acreage, and the neighbors around here have all lived here for 30 or 40 years. We're the new kids. We've only been here 7 or 8 years. And they do come and just talk to you and that sort of stuff. We don't have 6 foot fences and hide behind everything. We've little wire fences to keep cattle in and things like that. So you can see the neighbours driving down the easement down past things and all that, and everyone waves. And so yeah, in those conversations, I'm nicer because I'm intuitively getting told don't say that, or whatever. Yeah, just yeah.
Well, I think you ask yourself the question, what can I gain? And then you ask yourself, what can I lose if I start tapping into my intuition, right? What do you have to lose? Not a whole lot, but it's kind of like your story about your anniversary dinner. You had a better evening, most likely, because you tapped into your intuition and let it come through like what was going to serve you best. And so if you start thinking about it that way, if you're constantly tapping into your intuition for every choice, which that's a lot, but if you start tapping into it for every choice, the outcome throughout the day is just a better day overall, right? You start tapping into like, maybe what outfit should I wear today? And you're going to end up wearing the perfect outfit for the weather, right? And you're not going to be uncomfortable. You wore exactly what you needed for the weather that day, or whatever event might have popped up. Like you're already prepared, you're wearing the right thing. You end up at a restaurant that doesn't upset your stomach. So you have a better whole rest of the day, right? So just every time you tap into your intuition, it has this domino effect. And we may not see it, but when you start reflecting on it, you'll start to notice that more than likely it has made your life overall just a better life.
Yeah. And people could be listening to that bit and sort of say, all those little things like that. Yeah, I'm looking for big stuff. Well, when you start to develop the little stuff, the bigger stuff pops up. A few years ago, we were living on a little tropical island and just north of the equator between Guam and Hawaii. We had a little scuba dive business and restaurant and hotel. And for various reasons, it was time to sell and move back to Australia. And, there's a lot of people dream about that lifestyle, but very few people willing to pack up and take it. So for us to now sell the business was
Mhm.
like, very, very limited amount of people who are willing to pack up. There was a magazine article once that nominated the island we lived on as the sixth most remote place on the planet. So we're in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And so my wife and I have made a hard decision. We are selling the place, and we now had to work out how much to sell it for, how to market it, all that sort of stuff. We've rung our 4 children, and well, a couple of them were with us, a couple were back in Australia, and told them all. We had a big conference call to this is what's happening, da 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 da. We're moving back. And of course, all the questions then, how are you going to sell it, how much you're selling it for, all that stuff. And it was getting very challenging and like da 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 da. And anyway, I love that the thing I love after intuition is synchronicities. And I'd had 3 synchronicities lead me to start the business like 20 plus years earlier. And now 2 synchronicities came a day apart that showed us how to move the business on.
Mhm.
And cut a really long story short, we moved the business on 14 months later for 3 times the price that we would have been happy to accept if someone came and said, here's the cash that you want, and off we go. So it was a lot of physical work, a lot of mental and emotional work to do what we did. But if we'd have sold it traditionally and normally, it would have been a lot of emotional and mental work to do that as well.
Mhm.
But we walked away from that like just like with our heads held high because we all realized how much intuition and that sort and following it and the synchronicities were so strong. I knew from previous synchronicities if I didn't follow them immediately, the universe was probably just going to go, hands off, buddy. Like you're on
Yeah.
your own. Like we've just
Mhm.
dropped this in your lap. You know what's going on. You know this is crazy. You it looks like if it didn't go right, you got so much egg on your face, it's not funny, but you know it's going to work. You know.
Mhm.
And so we just followed it because one of the things that happened, the second synchronicity is my son came to me and said, Dad, I think this is how we should, what we should do. And after a couple of minutes, I stopped him and I said, Mate, I,
Mhm.
I'm on board completely with your idea. You have to go and
Mhm.
convince your mum because it's pretty wild and out there. Anyway, he went and 3 hours later, he came back and he'd convinced her and off we went and
Mhm.
did it. Um, but you don't get ideas and synchronicities like that day one.
Mhm.
You know, it's
It
you've
takes
got to,
time.
yeah, you've got to build up, and the universe has got to know that you're going to trust it. Or if the universe does drop that, in, you're not going to recognize it. You're just
Yeah.
not going to know it. That's what could, the way to go and follow.
That's interesting what you're talking about, making me think about how people miss the signs sometimes. The universe is trying to deliver things, but they just keep missing them. And eventually the universe is like, okay, you're not listening. So I'm just going to let you keep doing your life until you want to tap back in here and ask for some help. But I can think about too, when you're talking about synchronicities with our own life, when we were living in California, I mean, I don't know if you want to call it intuitive so much as just, I mean, it's that universal energy, though, from beyond, where we just kept putting it out to the universe that if this is where we're meant to be, okay, we will stay. But we are also very open and understanding that there may be a better place out there for us than where we are currently. And we knew we had an interest in Texas, which is where we are now. But there were some other places, but we just kept putting it out there. And I just kept putting it out there constantly. Like, I'm still open to it. I'm open to leaving. I'm open to staying, whatever is best. Like, you know my heart, you know my intentions here. I want what's best for myself and my family. If it's staying here, it's staying here. If it's not, it's not. And then eventually everything just lined up so perfectly. It was just wild and it it couldn't have been any better. We ended up our home that we had been in for barely 2 years. We made a lot of money on it when we sold it. Like, the real estate market was just perfect. It was wild. And but not that that's the synchronicity. The real synchronicity was the fact that there was a man in Dallas working at my husband's company, and he wanted to come to the exact area that we lived. And there was an opening in my husband's office. And I was like, well, like, speak up. I mean, I know they kind of knew we were open to moving. And so, sure enough, the spot that was open, they filled it with somebody else. And then they let the person from Texas, Dallas, go into my husband's role. And my husband, swapped. Basically, we just did a swap. And that all aligned with the timing of the real estate market and everything. Like, everything just worked out in our favor and perfectly. And so when you have to have the patience too, right? We can't just put it out there that we want this and this. Like, I never say exactly what I'm looking for. I just say that I'm looking for whatever is best for me, however I can serve the world in the best way and help everyone. Just let that be. And I'm just following the path ahead of me. So I think people have to have that patience too, because sometimes people, not that we need to get into the whole manifestation topic, but people think they know exactly what they need and exactly what they want for their lives. But I promise you, if you already knew exactly what you needed, like, you wouldn't be where you are.
Yeah. When you were explaining that, I could see like parents sort of watching three or four children running around, young children under 3 to 5 running around the backyard, playing, doing whatever. And the parents sort of suggesting a few things. Would you like this? Would you like that? No, and they're not listening because they're running around having fun. Parents often offering them something nice to eat or drink, or, I've got this new playground thing here. Would you like us to put the playground, and the kids are running around ignoring because they're not on the wave, they're not listening to their universe, which is their parent, and that sort of thing. And then maybe one of them does sort of listen. It's like, what did you say, mummy or daddy? Like, what was that? Would you like this? Well, I've got this for you. Oh, what is that? Well, it does this, it does that. Would you like it? Oh, maybe, yes, I would. And then one of them gets it because one of them stopped to listen, and then the parents sort of sitting back, watching the others and waiting for them to tune in, like start to see, how come Billy got that, and they have a
Yeah.
cry. And it's like, well, I offered it to all of you and I've got one for every one of you, but you just need to listen to mummy or daddy and come and get it. It's here. And when one of them stops bawling and crying, they come over and give me a hug. And then it's like, oh, you've got another one. Yeah, I said that. You weren't listening, and that's us. We're these little children who think we know,
Mhm.
what we need. We're trying to manifest. The kids are manifesting a good time running around and around the backyard, but there's more to it at times as well as we grow and get ready, and the parents don't give the child, their own house to live in when they're 3. That's for much
Yeah.
later, so we've got to grow into it, experience it, and yeah, but we've got to listen. And we've got to be
Yeah.
willing to take it on. And a parent might bring something along that seems scary or seems unusual, and or seems like, oh, all my friends will laugh at me if I have that, but we don't, because the child can't see the
Yeah.
experience of the parent. And yeah, and I see us often like that with God, with source, with universe, whatever you want to call this force that's benevolent and invisible to our physical eyes, who loves us, is constantly trying to help us. And
Yeah.
yeah,
There. Yeah.
yeah, that's good. All right. Well, I've loved our time together. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to? And I'm going to have your contact details and all that in the show notes. But is there anything else you wanted to share that we haven't talked about?
Just that I hope everybody listens to this episode and makes the decision to seek more out of their lives if they don't already feel like it's fully fulfilled.
Yeah. If they feel
Mm.
like they're a little child running around the yard, not listening to what mummy or daddy have that could be quite
Yeah.
beneficial to them, slow
Mhm.
down and listen to those voices, listen to
Yeah,
the
there
signs.
really is. I promise people, I have been through so much, and so I really do believe there's a way out of every situation that you think you're in.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. Well, thank you for
yeah.
your time, Andrea. And
Yeah, thank
yeah,
you.
it's a pleasure. Thank you. Bye bye. Well, we're at the end of another thought provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition, it will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.